So welcome to the virtual spring showcase from Tabletop Gaming. I'm Chris, the editor of the magazine, and today I'm joined by a man who spends most of his time living out in a bunker in the apocalypse.
That's right.
Ben Maddox. Hi.
Hello. I mean, I call it a cabin because I want it to sound more appealing and more sort of bougie. But yeah, it's a concrete bunker with no heating.
That's it. Yes, and you've been living in the end times for a little while now.
Yeah, for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
It was the 3-year anniversary of the show, like 2 years ago. So I don't 2 months ago. So I was completely used to our current situation.
Exactly. But we're so you are the host and the auteur of 5 Games for Doomsday, which is a fabulous podcast all about the games that are on the surface it's about the games that you'd grab with you if the world was ending, and you can only take 5 games from your collection. On the surface, it's about that, but what really is a way of you prizing open people's biographies and finding out why they love the games they love.
Yeah, I came up with this really pretentious sort of justification for why I'm doing the show, and I've been sort of testing it out over interviews in the last couple of months. So basically, what it is, if you go back, so I see board games as this nascent art form, right? Being considered as art is a sort of nascent thing in board gaming, even though board games have been around since the Egyptian times or whatever. And if you think about, so my comparison is novels. Mm-hmm. They were considered ephemera when the novel first became a thing, right? Mm. So you don't have interviews with people like Lawrence Stern. We don't know what Lawrence Stern was thinking. Mm. And so I sort of see it as my mission in the nascent sort of phase of board games as art to try and chronicle these people that are responsible for the creation of these things, I guess. Is so in 200 years when there's the equivalent of the National Theatre for board games, they have these relics of a former time of the people who set the foundation for the thing. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And that's a thing that we struggle with to do at the magazine as well. We're trying to find a language to talk about board games that isn't just, is it fun? Because obviously it is fun, but you feel a lot of things while playing a board game, and trying to take that apart is important, and understanding why we feel those things from different different mechanics or different just expressions within the game. So yeah, I think we're in good company, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the magazine, right, that you have hard limits on size, right? And these sorts of things take the kind of waffling exploration that I partake in.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. The podcast is lovely and meandering. I think is a fair thing to say, because you are kind of unafraid to ask questions that are kind of in a journalistic interview would be off topic, let's say.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, and so that's your podcast.
Yeah.
And is there anything else we need to know about you before we present what we're going to present today?
I'm always up for receiving anonymous donations. If someone wants to buy me a country cottage somewhere, I'd be up for that. I'm trying to push at the moment my YouTube channel, which you just search 5 Games for Doomsday on YouTube. My latest video might be something you're interested in, Chris, is the title of it, You Should Be Writing About Board Games. And it's a sort of 15-minute exploration of why writing in and of itself is a wonderful thing to do, not as even as a professional pursuit, just as simply a well-being pursuit, and then why specifically you should write about games too. I guess at the moment, all the writing I've been doing has really been focusing on how to stop yourself going nuts. And it's kind of about this particular time, even though it's not explicit. But I'm going to look back in a few years and see this last few months sort of writing and go, oh my God, yeah, I was slowly going potty during those months. So yeah, YouTube, 5 Games for Doomsday, some good stuff there, I think.
Excellent. But today we're not looking at the end of the world. We're not living in the end of days.
Right.
We're actually kind of flipping on its head. You know, a lot of people, as you say, are currently going mad in some way, in some form of lockdown and some sort of isolation, dealing with the mass psychic trauma and literal trauma of the global pandemic.
Exactly.
So instead, we're going to flip this and we're going to say, here's the 5 things we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Something.
I mean, I've got 5.
Yeah, I've not quite got 5.
I mean, always be branding. You see, that's what I'm on. Always be branding.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're just going to have a little wander through a few of the games we're looking forward to, and it should be just a nice overview of some of the stuff that's coming up over the next few months, years, and so on, that we can all kind of grasp onto as probably the games we're going to be grabbing on the way out of our houses when we all appear on your podcast, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So you've checked your NDAs. We're all good legally for this.
Yes, I think so. Yes, I've gone for a few safe ones. I
am not legally culpable for anything Christopher says on this show. And you can sue me. You could try and sue me if you want. I've got no money, so it's going to be a fruitless exercise.
Well, I mean, look what's going on behind Ben here. You know,
exactly.
Can you find that man? Probably not.
There's a beholder.
There is, yes.
Behind my head.
Yes. So, shall we start with your first one? What are we beholding to begin with?
So my first one is on most people's lists, I would have thought. It's one of the most unique voices in board game design at the moment. He is going to be, when we look back on this period, considered one of the best too. Mm-hmm. He makes games that are not only thematically interesting and challenging, but also mechanically completely out of the box. But, and this is important, there are a lot of great designers around who sort of plump for depth through complexity, and this is a designer that doesn't. His games are always eminently easy to grok. And this is Cole Worley, and the game is Oath, which is coming out soon. And I don't really know anything about it, really, other than it seems to be this grand, epic, storytelling, kingdom-building kind of game. But because it's Cole Worley, it's going to be brilliant, I guess.
It is going to be brilliant, yes. So this is one of the ones on my list. This, in fact, top of my list.
As I said.
So Oath is a fabulous looking game. It's a multi-generational game about building kingdoms, as you say, and then sort of claiming various areas. It's got a little bit of area control about it, and sort of generating enough kind of goodwill to kind of overthrow the current ruler.
Right.
And so that sounds all very simple and very similar to some other games that Cole has done. But what's wonderful about this game is this is the kind of like an endless legacy game,
right?
That mutates every time you put it back in the box. So I interviewed him some issues ago, maybe a year ago, about this game, and we talked about how the way he came to this idea was he used to play a lot of games that he'd get secondhand as a kid. So boxes of things would turn up that he'd got from car boot sales, that he'd got from secondhand shops, or be given, his uncle gives him Hero Quest or whatever. And but it's only years later that he realizes that he didn't play with base game Hero Quest. He played with base game Hero Quest with half the pieces missing and an expansion, and then the wrong set of rules and that sort of thing. And there was something interesting about that for him to then want to go and make a game that kind of has like this like decay on it as it changes throughout each game, and the board setup changes each time you play. You just roll out a mat. You put your cards out in the same order, and then your next game you play is with the same or different factions, trying to sort of do the same thing, but you're just always affecting this world, adding cards to the deck, removing cards from the deck, that sort of thing, in a way that is he talked about it as an intergenerational thing, that you could even
Right.
And my daughter was very young at the time, so I was probably a bit soppy about this sort of stuff. But the idea of passing something on and a legacy game that is about legacy, that you could play this game for 20 years and then pass it on to your children, and they could play for another 20 years, and the game doesn't break at any point. You know.
Well, this is the hope, at least.
This is the idea. Yes.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't know whether this will be considered his masterpiece, but I mean, it seems to me that, you know, anything I play by him, and my next pick is kind of along these lines as well. Anything I play by him, I think, is utterly unique, but isn't opaque either. He's not trying to dazzle you with sort of mechanical brilliance. There is always a very sharp focus on making the game playable quickly. I mean, Pax Pamir is a war game that is super simple. You can explain the game in 5 minutes, and it's the depth that comes from those very, very simple rules that is really refreshing.
Yeah, there's a few designers that do this. I'm sure they'll also turn up on your list. But that idea of kind of the idea of like something having an indestructible heart to it in a game,
right?
That is just like you can see it at every point that you touch the game. You can see this single concept, I guess. I think that's something that the Cole does incredibly well. That's great. So that's Oath.
Indeed,
as our number one. Shall I do one?
None of these are in any particular order, by the way,
sorry, that
of expectation.
Yes.
It was the first one we talked about rather than the first one in anticipatory tingling.
So I'll go. I'll do one now, if that's all right. And hopefully you'll say, hey, that's one on my list too. And that is by another like well-known designer, I think, or I should have done the joke of him not being very well known. Actually, it's by some gentleman called Eric Lang, and it is
never heard of him.
No,
Love Rising Sun though. Yeah. Don't know who did that, but love it.
Yeah, love it. This is Mr. Lang's new game, and another cover I did some months ago, and that's Ankh. Gods of Egypt, which is the huge minis, unsurprisingly, moving about a map, unsurprisingly, kind of having a little bit of a fight, commanding some things, using a bit of air majority and that sort of thing, having weird asymmetrical powers in some respects, and that all sounds like an Eric Lang game, you know?
Yeah, right.
And that's cool. But the really cool part is the player elimination that we're all looking forward to, which is when your god dies, when you get knocked out, because you are playing the gods of Egypt, if that wasn't clear. When your god dies, what you do is you don't leave the game. You are eliminated until the end of that round, and then your god joins with the next weakest god, and you play together. And that's how, and because that models, and this is again this thing that I guess we're kind of nudging at before, something Eric Lang said elsewhere, which is this is the central metaphor of the game, which is the way that Egypt moved from polytheism to monotheism, and the way they did that so you have Ra and Amon. You have two gods at the start, but obviously we all know Amon-Ra as a god of Egypt, you know, and so you become that character, you know, later on. And I think it just looks so elegant. Everything's beautiful. The miniatures are ginormous again, obviously, and there's just something nice about that. So that's up there for me on my list of most anticipated, and that should be dropping so soon.
Yeah, because the Kickstarter was 2 years ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. The problem is, the last Simon Kickstarter I backed was another Eric Lang game, which was The Others.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was the first one and the last one. And the reason is, it's not that the game was particularly bad or anything. It's just that I basically got sent the EU mountain of plastic in a box. And I live in a city and I've got limited space, so I can't back Simon games because you just get too much stuff, And then I feel bad about not playing the expansions because I never play games often enough to really be able to introduce expansions.
Yeah.
But this is great. I love the sort of ancient Egyptian thing. I'm a Lovecraft fan, and I love all the Nilo Arthur Tep and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, and I'm sure I've been trapped in lockdown with a bunch of Euro gamers, and they're lovely people and everything, but I haven't played like a dumb big fighty game in a year now.
Yeah.
So something like this would be such a palate cleanser.
I think lockdown has done that to us, hasn't it? We are obviously very thankful for our families or the people we live with. I
mean, you have to get that disclaimer out the way before you start slagging them off. You see,
yes. But it means we usually, because usually we probably have quite varied gaming groups,
right?
And people who like different things, and I have groups of people who I know who's going to get excited about what kind of game, because you kind of read people a little bit. There's the guy who just loves a really crunchy puzzle, and then there's the guy who just wants to, basically every game's a role-playing game for them,
right.
And so they're like really into whatever theme and all that sort of stuff. So we're all at home now with a set group of people, and what we get to play that in a way that kind of engages everyone properly is obviously limited by their taste.
Right, exactly.
In a way that we wouldn't normally. So I was saying before this call, we're talking briefly about Cosmic Frog.
Right.
And we were talking about how conflict is really good in that, and how my partner, she loved it, because that's the kind of game. One of our favourite games to play together is Undaunted, because that's a good conflict heavy but like elegant game, where kind of like all of your actions are an expression of your will in a very direct way. So that's where we are. And as you say, you're trapped. I'm saying this in a really pejorative way.
Oh no, trapped is fine. Trapped is underselling it, if anything.
You're trapped with some Eurogamers, and like you're probably just really bored of exchanging wheat for wood.
I mean, I love it. I do love it. That's my wheelhouse is sort of midweight Euros. That's where I'm most comfortable. I just like to sort of step out of my wheelhouse occasionally,
Yeah,
and
I'm very much the same in that I a midweight Euro, Tekkenu, which came out last year now. That's very good.
Oh, I've got Tawanitsuyu. I'm sure that pronunciation is flawless. I've got that sat over there waiting to play.
Yes, I mean, obviously, Mr. Tercy makes very good games. But that was one of those games that got me back into the crunchier side of Euros, just because the way it presented itself to me, just really got my juices going, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I do. Unfortunately, I'm slightly nauseous as well. So let's not focus on Christopher's juices, shall we?
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Next up.
So my next one is another one of these designers, or it's a partnership who are, they make incredibly unique things. Some of their games rub me up the wrong way, and some of them are unalloyed masterpieces, but every game they design I want to play, and this is the one I think that these guys attract a level of devotion that is verging on sort of cult-like, but their games are always incredibly fascinating, and I know nothing about it because they never release any information, and they're just the worst people at marketing in the world. But it doesn't matter; their games all sell out in 5 minutes. And this is Horseless Carriage.
Horseless Carriage. Ooh.
By the Splotter guys.
You have to tell me something about it.
Well, this is the point. I don't know anything. So you're familiar with Splotter, right?
Yeah.
So I recently played Look at the way I'm dancing around, not knowing anything about this game. I recently played Antiquity, and it's just a masterpiece. I played it, and it went into my top 10 instantly. Absolutely fantastic. And so Horseless Carriage is their new game that no one knows anything about. There is no box cover been released. There has been no blurb on the box been released. If you look at the BGG page, there's kind of almost nothing, and people are going, what is this about? But it doesn't matter. And I assume it's about cars, and I assume it'll be a big box, heavy splotter game, and they haven't released one since Food Chain Magnate, which is astonishing, and it's an insta-buy for me, just simply because their games are always so innovative and interesting and challenging. And, as I say, I love midweight Euros, and I've seen a trend in games for ameliorating negativity over the last sort of 10 years. So there could be, I don't think it's exactly true, but there could be an accusation that Euro games are essentially Skinner boxes. You press a button, you get a nut. You press a button, you get a nut. Whereas the Splotter guys, their games smack you around the face. Yeah. And also players are able to smack each other around the face. I don't know if you've played Bus by them.
No, I haven't, no, but it was quite well reviewed by
Bus astonishing, and it's brutal. And it is Bus really encapsulates the Splotter experience, but in 40 minutes, which for them, because they make long, heavy games usually. But Horseless Carriage, is the first game from them in like 5 years. I'm sure every Splotter person is shaking with withdrawal at this point. And so, I know nothing about it other than the Splotter game. It's called Horseless Carriage, so I assume it'll be about cars, and it'll be great, I'm sure.
That's interesting. I wonder what they're going to do. I've just Googled it for the immediate jokes, and I've just seen someone's written. You could say it's an engine building game.
Yeah.
Which is just a good joke that I'm sharing.
I mean, good is obviously a movable feast.
Yes, subjective.
And joke is also a movable feast.
Excellent. Okay, Horseless Carriage.
Horseless Carriage.
Excellent.
And don't expect to be able to get a copy when it comes out, because it'll sell out straight away.
Probably already sold out.
Probably is.
Yeah. In futures, in Splotter futures.
Exactly.
People are already trading them. Excellent. So the next on my list was again a game we covered quite recently, but it will be landing probably around 2022.
Okay,
it's a long way away, but it's Agamonia.
I know nothing about this.
Well, this is a kind of like the end point of whatever Gloomhaven started.
Okay.
So it's a beautiful, elegant fold-out book of maps where players go on adventures in a fantasy world, and they overcome things by spending action points to do stuff. But the game is kind of full of these like little jokes and things. People can, I believe, play this on Tabletop Simulator in some form, some early demos and stuff like that. So if, that could always be arranged. But it's a
instead of playing it on Tabletop Simulator, is it possible I could hammer 6-inch nails into my own eyeballs, please? Not casting any aspersions on Tabletop Simulator or anything.
Not at all. Well, it does the actual eye strain of playing board games online in that way does actually compare sometimes.
I was a good boy at the beginning of the first lockdown. Yeah. I got on BGA and I went on Tabletop Simulator a bit, and like 2 weeks in I was like, I can't do this. This is horrendous. So I don't. Yeah,
I think the novelty wears off quite quickly.
Very
but for some people, it's a lifeline, and also the only way that they can play new stuff, just because we've not been able to get a room with any of this stuff for a long time.
Well, that's true, and because the thing about board games is there just aren't any. I mean, you can't go back and play old. I mean, there's like what, 2? I mean, you have to constantly play new stuff because there's no games.
Well, you do have to play new stuff, absolutely. Yeah, if you're for example, running a magazine about it. But yes, which is an interesting question in itself. Actually, I did have this theory at the beginning of the first lockdown that the whole industry was going to take a few months to just catch their breath, and everyone's fatigue with new stuff was going to be lessened. And I've been proven completely wrong. People absolutely just want new stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing, isn't it? Because, I write about this a lot. It sounds like I'm just plugging my stuff. And I'm not going to lie to you, Christopher. I am. This is just us, right? No one.
No,
this isn't. No. Yeah, I'm just plugging my stuff. No, and the thing is, I write about this a lot. And do I write this in the piece I wrote for the magazine? But there's the reason Jeff Bezos is now the richest man in the galaxy is because what this lockdown does is it exacerbates this hole we have at the center of our being that has been sort of created by only living digitally with each other. And the only way we can fill that hole temporarily is by buying stuff. So we get that initial oh, I've got something coming. Yeah. And the thing is, and it's that classic thing, it's that Schopenhauer and Mann thing that the anticipation is always more exciting than the actual thing. And then the parcel comes, you open the parcel, you throw it, and then you buy something new. So of course I'm sure people aren't playing these things though.
Yes, I think that's probably a case for that. I know a few people who have games. They're like, yep, that one's going on the shelf for when I can see people. Lovely.
And can we have a moratorium on shelf of opportunity, please?
Shelf of opportunity.
It's shelf of shame. It is shelf of shame. You're buying tons of stuff when you've got all of this stuff you have yet to play. You should be ashamed of that. Not shelf of opportunity. Let's not try and dress this up in a bow. Shelf of shame. That's the only way you're going to get them played is by feeling bad about yourself.
And this is where I ask, did you have a Catholic upbringing?
No, I mean, not religious at all, but, I am British, so I'm constantly ashamed.
Yes, we're all cursed with that a little bit, aren't we? But, sorry, back, and this is actually... No. This is actually a thing I think of more and more, which is, because I play so many games, I play so many new games, I maybe, I think I review something about 7 games a month. So we do a good. I play a lot of games at this point. And I don't necessarily have time to return to things as much as I'd like to. But I keep doing this thing in my brain these days where I'm saying that'll be nice for when I retire, which is a really funny thing for me to be doing because I'm quite a long way from that. Despite
I assume running Tabletop Gaming UK, you're only a couple of years out from.
That's it. Well, yes,
having the cash to have your pied de terre.
Oh, I thought you were about to say being taken out back and shot like a horse that's broken its leg or something. But
not that that's an apt analogy for the print media industry.
But Agamonia is one of those games where I think I'm very much looking forward to playing this, but I know that the time I'll play this the most is on holiday or something like that. And it's an adventure game where you spend action points, but you're also your health to do things in the world. And as you do things, you flip cards, obviously, of an event deck of particular numbers. And then some of them overlay nicely on the map to give you new things that appear in the world. And there's some dice rolling to achieve all that sort of thing. But one of the interesting things about the game is that it's a fantasy world with no vanilla option, by which I mean there's no humans in it.
Oh, nice!
And I just think that's so simple and deeply refreshing in that way you just said there. Of nice, that's like there's no human warrior class,
right?
You know what I mean? There's no like complete accept terms and conditions version of playing this game.
Right.
Everything has a flavor, has a point, and exists in a world of stunning beauty, which apparently is more or less the homebrew world of their the creators Max Bookstrom, his one of his original D&D campaigns.
Nice.
It's basically something that's grown out of that he's been playing for 30 years. So in some ways it's kind of the ultimate fan fiction in that way. So Agamonia, interesting adventure world.
This is a warning for all people listening to this. Never trust people who, when you ask them what flavour crisp they prefer, say ready salted.
Oh, I quite like that. I do quite.
They can't be your favourite flavour of crisp, though, surely.
I think they might be.
Not in a world where prawn cocktail exists. You're telling me that ready salted is your favourite flavour of crisp.
See, I don't say. Okay, we're going to wildly off-ramping on a building site here.
I don't get to speak to British people very much. So, I mean, the thing is, you understand a prawn cocktail reference. I hung around with Germans and Americans. They have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yes. I because I don't eat crisps that often, I see them as basically a way to improve a sandwich.
You're not wrong.
And so I think ready salted is actually the best for that.
True.
In terms of just really what you're doing is adding salt and crunch. And
yeah. I can get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it's, I'm going to sit down and eat some salt. I mean, I just don't understand it. Salt's rubbish. I mean, it's fine as a flavour enhancer, but as a pure taste on its own. Yeah. Get prawn cocktail. Prawn cocktail, drop a pickled egg in there.
That sounds like insanity.
that is the ultimate gourmet experience. Heston Blumenthal can't come close to a packet of prawn cocktail crisps with an pickled egg dropped in it.
That's incredible, and something for everyone to try at home.
Yeah, exactly. Pickle your own eggs. We're in lockdown. What else are you going to do? And that's not a euphemism, by the way. I mean, literally pickle eggs. I mean, and if you're chickens, you can pickle your own eggs.
What is your next most look forward to game?
So this one, again, this is a symptom again of being trapped in an endless Twilight universe with Eurogamers. And so this is my antidote. This is my equivalent of your Ankh. This is my big, bombastic, probably not very good, but looks amazing, Ameritrashy, dungeon crawly sort of thing. And this is Cursed City from Games Workshop. It's the new Warhammer Quest one.
Yeah.
And they're wonderful marketers, and they've been drawing me in. And then YouTubers have been releasing videos saying, "Oh, look at these!" And I started minis painting.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, and I'm still awful, but GW minis are wonderful and they're great to paint. And I've told my game group, I'm buying this game when it comes out, and I'm not inviting any of you to play it with me because you're inveterate snobs, and all you'll do is moan that you have to roll dice. When the lockdown ends, I'm going to find people who are less up themselves, and I'm going to have fun with it. So Cursed City, it looks, a big campaigny dungeon crawly game. I haven't really played one since Descent 2nd Edition, and it's great fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it's, gothy and adolescent as all sort of Games Workshop stuff is.
Yeah, that's joyful. That's a joyful thing there. They said one of my great revelations during lockdown has been my love of big stupid games that involve dice,
right?
And particularly, and my top of my list for that is the excellent but incredibly dumb in the best way, in the same way heavy metal is dumb, is Planet Apocalypse, which is a Sandy Peterson game. So it's just big, nasty monsters, huge lumps of plastic, and it's a game where they spawn at one end of the map, which is basically a conveyor belt, and you are at the other end, and you've got to roll dice to beat them.
Nice.
And there is more to it than that. It's actually really quite clever in some of its systems and stuff like that, and there's lots of nice we just did it moments and stuff like that, but at its heart it's just sort of in the same way that I believe the video game Doom Eternal is actually the best Doom game, mostly because of its soundtrack. I think this is maybe my favourite Sandy Peterson game, just because of its aesthetic, its treatment, and everything.
Yeah, it's I went into the murky world because of lockdown of solo games a bit, and I bought Nemo's War.
Yes, I hear that's good. I've not played it,
which is wonderful. but it's this, intelligent game of interconnecting mechanics, but essentially everything is resolved with a dice roll.
Yeah.
And it's a real, it's a bit of output randomness can be a lot of fun at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've been, so I've been running a column in the magazine called The Soloist for a little while. And we've been, I've been rather, exploring a lot of solo games, sort of one move at a time is the strapline. And just one of the main features of the magazine, the article, is just working out where you're going to get the surprise from.
Right.
Where you're going to get the friction that you're pushing against. And usually it's, event decks. But often it's actually rolling some dice. And the more solo games I play, the less I feel bad about rolling dice.
Yeah, sure.
In that kind of way where it's like actual randomness is present on the board. Solo wargaming, for example, where a creature might do something a bit weird, actually, because you've rolled a dice. And while maybe it's not perfect design or something like that, it's actually pretty good for you playing it because you just want to be surprised. That's why that's often why we're playing games, is because we want that feeling of two things interlocking in a way we didn't expect, and getting that little buzz of or alternatively in a way we did expect and hoped would come off, and get that little buzz of a good feeling of just things clicking. And I think dice do deserve a place in our gaming.
Sure, they do. Yeah,
well, and not just RPGs.
I think Under Falling Skies utilizes that wonderfully. And what's really good is after you place the white die, you have to re-roll everything again because it has that. Oh, I rolled these dice awfully. I'm going to place this white die because I can re-roll everything and then fingers crossed. Or, which is even better, I've rolled everything I need. But I've got to place this white dice here, and I have to place it now, so I have to re-roll all of these perfect numbers that I have and just hope they come back up. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. What is your next pick?
Okay, I'll go two in a row.
If that's okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. So I got into coin games this year.
Oh, yeah.
Because my friend bought me Gandhi for Christmas. Not actually the man, the board game. I assume that would have been a diplomatic nightmare trying to get that through customs. But he bought me Gandhi, and I'd been sort of coin game curious for a while, and then when Gandhi came out, I thought this really appeals because it's a war game with two non-violent factions, which is super interesting in and of itself, and sort of being British, dissecting Britain's role around the world, and the dismantling of our colonial history and all of that sort of stuff is super interesting. And so I got Gandhi, and then I got I've got it here, I can look at it, All Bridges Burning, which is the 3-player coin game, which is about the Finnish Civil War, which I knew nothing about, and now I know a little bit about. And so this is a new coin game, and for GMT do publish sort of sci-fi games and stuff, but there hasn't been a non-real conflict coin game until now, and it's not out yet. I think it's coming out this year, and this is called Red Dust Rebellion.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bit. What's the film with Arnie where his eyes popping out? Total Recall-y.
Oh yeah.
It's a bit Total Recall-y because it's set on Mars and there are 4 different factions on Mars. It's in the future and you're all trying to take over the Martian colony and stuff. And it just seems super, super exciting. And yeah, really looking forward because coin games are wonderful. There's a hurdle over which to jump because they are rules heavy if you have been playing Eurogames a lot, but once you get there, they're really worth it.
I agree. I've recently leapt into the world of block war games.
Oh, really?
Which is surprisingly more like a social deduction game or a party game than you think.
Sure.
Because obviously it's hidden information, and basically, so the game I jumped into with is a game called This War Without an Enemy, which is the English Civil War.
Okay.
But it has almost everything I like about games with a kind of conflict element about it. I'm moving guys on the map. I have to be careful about where I move them because of got to make sure the right supply is there. There's hidden information, obviously. There's a version of events that happens at the top
Right.
as time ticks on. They happen to be real historical events that actually happened, and like I did learn something against my will, but because it's parliamentarians versus royalists, one of the goals is to have the to capture the king if you're the parliamentarians. But obviously you don't know where he is, and so there's just this sort of secret Hitler thing going on,
right?
And you're looking for him in one place, or you think you're about to go to conflict with the king, but he's not there. When the battlefield settles, it's sort of like the king wasn't there at all. Okay, rubbish. I conflicted all those people in Wales for some reason, for no reason at all, and it was all for naught. And the king's actually swanning around in York. And yeah, I think there's something to be said for spending the time to get into these sort of more archaic systems. I feel my brain became sort of much looser after getting it. I was much able to sort of retain many more different kind of weird systems, you know.
Yeah, and Volko, who designed the coin series, who's is the spiritual father of the coin series, he very much, I think, wanted to bridge, whether it was intentional. I mean, I had him on my show, and I'm sure I asked him this, but I can't remember whether it's intentional. He wanted to sort of make a kind of hybrid game. A war game that is recognizable to people who play Eurogames. And it certainly is. There's resource management and, you know, there's area control and things like this, which feel very familiar to people who play Eurogames, but there's also conflict. And as you say, what you do on your turn is you flip a card and that offers an event. And that event is usually beneficial to sort of one of the factions. And then choosing what to do, whether you wish to take the event or not, and all of that sort of stuff. And they're all events based around, you know, historical moments is a really interesting thing to do. And and Red Dust Rebellion just looks like a whole lot of fun. It's like Total Recall, you know.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty good. And that is maybe a surprising pick for some people, actually.
In what sense?
Well, just we don't necessarily always recommend coin war games.
Right, absolutely.
You know, because it's they are slightly archaic, not even archaic, just slightly off the beaten track. So.
Yeah, they're obtuse. Rules-wise, it's, you know, actually Gandhi is, I mean, it's if you're not familiar with these systems, they seem incredibly fiddly and opaque to begin with. But Gandhi has two rule books. It has the classic war game rule book, which reads like a legal document, you know, paragraph 4.321. And then it has a playbook. Yeah. And what the playbook does is take you through the first era of the game.
Yeah.
And so you can actually just put the board out and play through that era with the rule book. It tells you which moves to do, and it introduces every concept in the game. And it's actually brilliant. It's brilliantly written. Yeah. The rule book for Gandhi.
Oh, much like the route rule book that does that.
Right, exactly.
That's the walking through route or playing through route. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's lovely. So I think that's all 5, isn't it?
No, that's 4.
Oh, is it? Whoops.
It's all right.
Shall we have another go?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we do one more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you done with yours now?
I am.
You had 3.
I've got 3. Didn't I do Oath?
You Ankh. Oh, you did Oath, of course. Yeah, because we sank up. That's not the past tense of sink, is it?
No, not at all.
I've decided it's an irregular verb. Yeah. I've decided.
It certainly sounds irregular.
So my last one is a game that I've been anticipating for years now. It's a game designed by an ex sort of colleague of mine. He, on a former podcast I did, he had a section on it, and he's a really innovative designer who doesn't get enough of his games published for my liking. And this is My Father's Work. And this is designed by T.C. Petty III, and it's coming out at the end of the year, I think Q4. And the premise of this game is that you are. Have you ever seen Young Frankenstein?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So he goes to Frankenstein's castle and he finds the secret laboratory with his father's work, and then he builds young Frankenstein, right? He builds the monster. Well, this is the premise of this game. You are people who've inherited this castle, the classic castle in the Carpathians, and you go there and you find your father's journal. And you find about his scientific work, and you continue his scientific work. But what happens is it's played over 3 ages, and essentially you die at the end of each age. And so you have to decide which of your work is going to persist into the next age. And then you're creating these, mad scientist sort of stuff, and then there's a possibility that the villagers may rise up and attack the castle with pitchforks and torches and things and burn all your work to the ground. And then at the end of the 3 ages, whoever's got the most points, because it's probably a year ago, basically. Whoever's got the most points wins the game. But the premise seems good. I've heard him talk about it on podcasts. It's been in development now for like 4 or 5 years. Wow. It's Renegade are publishing it at the end of the year, and it seems very exciting, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it.
That sounds great. I love, again, much like Oath, anything that involves the idea of persistence between generations in any way, having to make those choices. I don't know if you played the solo role-playing game, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire.
I haven't. It's an absolute guarantee I haven't. But a solo role-playing game sounds interesting.
They're very good. I recommend them. I'll send you an article.
I've only played the single player introductory scenario for Call of Cthulhu. When they did
against
7th
Flames.
edition,
they
did a.
That's
I played through it, and I had the best rolls you can imagine.
Oh, really?
It was absolutely astonishing. I could completely walk to the scenario. It was brilliant.
Yes, walked into a strange village, got your car fixed, and left immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Call of Cthulhu. It's meant to be a horror game.
I didn't realise this was a mechanic simulator.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, I do like that. I think that's Alone Against the Flames. I think that's right.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
That's very good. I do really like that a lot. But 1,000-Year-Old Vampire has this concept of you are a vampire who is 1,000 years old, and you are kind of collecting memories as you go. Right. But at a certain point, you run out of diaries. So like kind of inventory slots for memories. So you've been there and been describing basically in couplets what your vampire's been doing, and the marks they've been gathering while doing it, the damage they've taken in some way for it, whether that's personal, psychic, or otherwise.
Had no idea what I should do, so I went and had a poo. Something like that.
Something like that, but usually more affecting.
Well, you. I'm not going down that road. I was just about to go down a road that we should not go down.
But in that you have to, at the end of certain periods, you have to discard memories, which is just like an interesting idea of writing a character, then having them forget things that you already know, and making choices for them with only the things they remember. And it's just this weird sort of distancing device within. That's where the surprise comes in this solo game, is that sort of element of distancing yourself from yourself by having this character that pretty much was you at the start, but is now becoming something else. I like that legacy element.
It would be perfect for me because I am a 1,000-year-old vampire. So.
Oh, cool. That explains the basement, I guess.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if I shave this beard off, it just comes back in 2 seconds.
Is that how vampires work?
Yeah, I thought the whole thing it was like Interview with a Vampire. Kirsten Dunst, the Kirsten Dunst character, she gets turned into a vampire when she's like a 11-year-old girl, and she rebels and goes, right, I'm cutting off these cute curls, and she cuts them off, and 5 minutes later they just grow back because that was what she looked like when she was transformed.
Oh, I see. I couldn't remember that at all.
I mean, I might be wrong. I might be hallucinating that part of the film because I haven't seen it since it came out. But that's what I think.
It's a fabulous trope to include in future works regardless. So
Yeah, absolutely.
but you've obviously just copyrighted that if it didn't already exist.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure releasing an idea on a YouTube video is actually the modern form of copyright. So if anyone does it, I'll just sue them now and refer them to this video.
Yes. Having to add a timestamp for copyright claims. Very good. Right. So, well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. And so, where can we find you? Where should we find you?
Should is the word.
Yes.
So yeah, as I said, on YouTube, 5 Games for Doomsday. Just put that in the search bar, and you'll find it, and you'll see a whole list of videos with tens of views. And also my podcast, which I think pretty much every designer we've talked about, apart from, I know TC hasn't been on it and Eric Lang hasn't been on it, but everyone else, Sandy Peterson, for instance, has been on my show. You can go to 5gamesfordoomsday.com and you can find all the interviews there, loads of interesting people, and you can find out what Volko Runke, the designer of the coin system, did when he was in the CIA.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. And also, you have written the Cardboard Manifesto for the magazine that has just come out.
Yes.
And so, if you would like more of Ben, but
You can't get enough
in your eyes, but not via a series of moving images known as film,
exactly.
Then pick up a copy of the magazine and read a heartfelt sort of endorsement of the human connection found in gaming.
Right.
I think that's about right.
Incredibly lonely and trapped with Eurogamers. They don't have souls, you know.
This is not an endorsement of the Tabletop Game Magazine virtual spring showcase does not endorse that opinion of Eurogames, although they have been getting drier in recent years.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.